NATO Summit kicked off in Washington this week, the gathering marking the 75th anniversary of the military alliance that started after World War II.
Summit is also drawing attention to Ukraine's path to joining NATO. Joining us today to discuss is Natalie Melnichuk, Euro-Atlantic security consultant and lecturer at Wayne State University. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So the Secretary of State is saying that this is going to happen eventually, that Ukraine is irreversibly on a path to joining NATO, but not until the war with Russia is over. How big of a deal will this be for Ukraine?
It is the only way to assure Ukraine's future security, Europe's future security, and U.S. future security. Right now, Ukraine lives in an unfortunate gray zone. Any gray zone of security in Europe means instability. It's a territory just asking to be invaded and fought after. Russia certainly took that as a green light to invade, knowing it wasn't part of a protected security alliance. And NATO under Article 5 provides protection to every single allied member. And that's why in 75 years, there hasn't been a war against NATO or one of its members.
Wow, so that sounds like there's a lot hanging in the balance then. Are there any other benefits that could be at play for Ukraine joining NATO?
Well, Ukraine brings a lot to the table for NATO, and all allied member nations of NATO agree that without NATO, if it didn't exist, then at this point in time in history, it would have to be created. We are in a geostrategic global political shift. Right now we have Russia challenging the established world order after World War II, a rules-based, democratic, ordered world based upon predictability, rules of behavior, respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty, and Russia would like to upend that. That's because right now President Putin runs an authoritarian regime in Russia. Democracies are a threat to his people because if his people want independence and freedom, they will challenge his authority. And we have seen that happen over the years. Other autocratic leaders are taking a page out of the playbook of Putin. We have China watching closely, North Korea watching closely, and Iran. So there is a lot at stake what NATO does and doesn't do today. And NATO is firmly committed, as they're expressing in this two-day summit in Washington right now, firmly committed to supporting Ukraine and its independence by providing what Ukraine needs to win this war against Russia.
So the war has to end before Ukraine can join NATO. There also have to be some reforms within Ukraine. What reforms are those, and how do the Ukrainian people feel about them?
Well, Ukraine has been trying to enter NATO since 1991 for all but 4 years. And there's a reason for those 4 years. They were just trying to be more neutral to appease Russia so that Russia wouldn't invade. Although Ukraine, like every sovereign country in the world, has the choice to write its own foreign and security policy. So now Ukraine, just like all other nations that want to join NATO, has to prove that it meets certain criteria. There are 10 basic baskets, more or less, to generalize that every country needs to meet. In general, though, they need to be democratic, have democratic structures and procedures, have democratic policies for their people, a functioning market-based economy, meaning it's free, fair, open to competition, and a few other markers that really define the common values of all NATO allied member countries. We share that in common. We may look different, we may have different languages, we may have different histories, but at the end of the day, we believe in the fundamental liberal rule of law order that a democracy brings. So democracy and democratic resilience has to be strong. We can't bring a country that will bring with it weakness to our strong political military alliance. Ukraine is just about ready. They have been working on membership again for now over 30 years. They've made massive reforms, but it's an ongoing process. And even in our own member countries, it is an ongoing process, fighting for democracy, creating democracy, protecting it, keeping everything transparent and everyone accountable. So Ukraine is definitely on its way. It will become a member, as the NATO member allied countries have told us. It just won't be right now. So the current rhetoric is building a bridge with lights on it for Ukraine, meaning they're just completing the necessary steps. But the path is definitely there.
It's coming. Well, thank you so much for breaking that down for us. This is Natalie Melnichuk, lecturer at Wayne State University. We always appreciate your time.
Thank you.